of the coolest weapons in the DLC now, one of the coolest weapons in the game is this beautiful piece of sword that you can see right here. First, before we actually talk about the weapon, how is it that you can build it to get the most advantage out of the weapon, let me show you real fast where you can get it. So this is the starting place of the game. There's only just one single requirement for you to get the weapon. Go up until you reach the Elec Great Bridge. Up there, up north, you do have the Legacy Dungeon. You're not going to go that way. Instead, you're going to turn right here towards this place until you manage to reach the Dragon's Pit. At the Dragon's Pit, you're going to be able to fight a dragon. That's where you get the Dragon Katana, not the dragon, the fighter that you have right there. That's going to yield you access to all of this area right here, and this is a path that you can follow to get towards this side. Now, if you follow this path right here, eventually you can get down to the coast, to the Cerulean coast right here. Once you reach the Cerulean coast west, which you should if you go down this path that I'm showing you right here, all you have to do is just follow this path that I'm showing you right now, and then over here, and this is where you're going to fight the boss that has it. It's very easy, it's not difficult at all, so there you go. So the strengths of the weapon and what it mainly is going to be, one thing that I like is that it's just a streamlined basic build. It's going to be focused on dexterity. The weapon scales the Ash of War damage out of dexterity, and it also scales the basic damage of the weapon out of dexterity. It has huge amounts of attack range for a weapon so light. Now the Ash of War, have in mind that while it does have huge stagger potential and huge knockdown potential, that's the main strength of the weapon. But the downside is that it doesn't have any kind of hyper armor. So you do want to have some kind of armor that allows you to go beyond the 51 poise thresholds for you not to get staggered at all times. One thing that you can do also is that the weapon Ash of War is based on 3 attacks, 3 inputs. You can interrupt them if you feel that the enemy is going to interrupt you first, so that you can continue the assault, so that you can continue attacking. Because then again, even while some attacks are airborne, the weapon Ash of War on itself, it doesn't have that much hyper armor, and more often than not, you can get interrupted. One nice thing about the weapon as well is that it has native bleeding. However, the weapon does not have arcane scaling. That being said, the bleeding is going to be a consequential something that you are going to sometimes get because of using the Ash of War. The nice thing is that while using the Ash of War, you also proc bleeding as well. That being said, it's only going to be useful against bosses because the basic enemies are going to more often than not die because of the huge power, attack power that the skill or that the Ash of War has before they actually get the bleeding. So bleeding, it's a nice little something in here that's not going to be that amazing. Now these are the stats that we have for this character build. Like I said, this is just a purely samurai dexterity kind of build. One little note is that if you're a caster, if you're an intelligence sorcerer, you have intelligence, and you do want to build it towards that way, you can. Have in mind that it's not going to deal as much damage as a 80 dexterity build. We do have 80, we'll talk about that in a little while. That's 75, it's not the maximum dexterity that we can reach. But if you are a caster and you want to use this, you saw that this was better than your Flashing Moon Veil, and you want to use it, you can if you have your 80 intelligence. It's just that it's going to be an extra tool to your arsenal because you're going to have spells. That said, the best possible way to build the weapon is going to be at 80 dexterity, which is the soft cap, the hard cap that we have for the weapon. Remember, soft cap 60, hard cap 80, the most damage that we get is just from right there. The weapon is not that heavy, so you don't need that much endurance. It doesn't use that much might, but if you want to be spamming it as much as you can possibly do, which is what I personally like to do, that's amazing. So 30 mine in here. You can lower by all means if you feel that vigor 50 is not enough. You can raise that up to 60 and then lower mine to 20, because like I said, the weapon Ash of War is not going to use that much might. As for the weapons, equipment, armor, the weapon on itself, which is the star of the show right there. As for the armor, any kind of armor that makes you look like a samurai, I do not look like a samurai right here, but I do feel that Relana, being a magic warrior, fits the playstyle that you have right here. Remember that you just want to have 51 points to get over that threshold that you have right there. I do have a wakizashi right here, but remember that the wakizashi, we only want to use it for golden bow because we don't have any faith. So I do have my wakizashi on my offhand, and I more often than not do not dual wield my weapon because we don't have strength and the weapon doesn't scale that much out of strength. So there is indeed that, of course. The talismans that I suggest for you to have at all times, my desired kind of talismans build is the ones that you see highlighted in blue, and then the gray ones, they are recommendations. However, Millicent Prosthesis, that is a must. This thing attacks like a maniac, so you're always going to have Millicent Prosthesis at all times. It also allows you to alleviate those little 5 extra points into dexterity. That is why I was telling you that we actually do have the 80 dexterity, not the 75 that I was showing you. And then this also stacks with the wing sword insignia, so both of them raise the attack power while you are performing the Ash of War. Shadow of Alexander is just a native little something that you want to do and you want to be using at all times. The magic scorpion charm, it's just 12% more magic damage, and even though that we are not scaling the magic damage of the weapon in itself already has 200 base magic damage, plus the 44 that it gets because of the weapon requirements. The intelligence 21 that we have right there, it's just because of weapon requirements, and that's what it's giving you to 244 magic damage. That's being scaled by 12% of the magic scorpion charm. So by all means, you are getting some kind of damage from magic in here, but that's just a little extra something. This is where you can make a concession. This is where you can have like the Earth 3 favorite +2, or maybe you want to use one of the new talismans, or maybe you want to use something like stamina, because this is a very stamina hungry build, so you can very well replace this for something that it is going to give you stamina. Just have in mind that the previous 3 that I told you are the ones that are going to increase the DPS that much. The crystal tears are actually quite interesting as well. I'm focusing myself on reaching as much damage as possible, so the magic shrouding crack tier is going to increase your magic damage by 20%. So if you have in mind that you already have like 250 magic damage on itself, that's actually quite a lot that you're going to get. You're getting like 50 points extra into magic damage, which is going to consequentially, with consequent hits, going to translate into more damage. So this is one that I consider to be a must, just because 20% is just too much to bypass it. And then we have the intelligence not crystal tier. Remember that we already have the hard cap of the weapon. Intelligence scales the damage a bit, and it is going to basically work alongside the magic scorpion jam and the magic shrouding crack tier to translate into more damage, because you're giving the weapon 10 points more scaling into intelligence. It's just that it is not going to be that much for it to actually be something that you want to be using. So by all means, this is the one that you can be using to play around with. So for example, the Stonebark cracked here, because like I said, this is a weapon that actually causes quite a lot of stagger, so this increases the posture damage of the weapon. But like I said, it's a very stamina hungry build, so the Grimburst Crystal Tia, it's just an amazing option that you can have right here. You can play with this slot at your leisure. Just have in mind that I do advise for you to use at least the magic shrouding crack tier as a must, and then play around with whatever else you have. Overall, it's just an amazing, well-rounded weapon. It's flashy. It's one of the flashiest weapons in the game. I think that, to be fairly honest, when it comes to flashiness and the new weapons, the basic game of Elden Ring already set up the boss too high for the DLC, so that's why many of us probably feel like it's a little bit underwhelming on how flashy some weapons might be, but that's just because the Elden Ring weapons were already flashy on itself, so it's difficult to beat that bar that they had right there. So this is one of the weapons that actually does beats that bar that you have right there, and it's just so gorgeous. And the most amazing parts of everything, of course, is that remember that you are just a basic dexterity samurai. You might look like a magic warrior, but you don't have to worry about buffing or about casting spells or Terra Magica. As a matter of fact, Terra Magica is not going to be helping you with this weapon at all, because even though that it has been nerfed also, you do have to stand in one point to use Terra Magica. So this is the Terra Magica is useless with this weapon, because this weapon is always going to keep you mobile and moving forward and plunging towards the enemies. It deals tremendous amounts of posture damage, stagger damage, but just have in mind that, like I said at the beginning of the video, you do want to use it skillfully and mindfully, and pausing each time, sometimes around here and because you can get interrupted, especially if you don't have that 51 points threshold. One extra little thing that you can do with the weapon is that swap in between the lock-on system, depending on, as you can see me using right here, depending on if an enemy already died, because it is going to kill enemies more often than not before you complete the animation, so that you can plunge into the next one, just making you a brutal killing machine. If you like the content, so like and the appreciate it. And also, you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, join the Discord. I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye.